All right, good evening and welcome to the AID Family Council. I am going to ask everybody to introduce themselves while I mute myself and send a link to one of our other staff members who doesn't have it. Raj, would you help make sure by starting out the introductions?
Sure.
And passing on to the next person? Thank you.
My name is Raj Mandral. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at AID. I've been here for 30 years. Jim?
Most of you know me, I think. Jim Gould. I serve on the board and parent and involved in AID. Becky, you're next.
Okay, I'm Becky Simmons. I'm a parent of an adult that goes to ETC. My son, John.
Yep.
Mary or Bob?
Hi, we are Mary and Bob Shenahaw. We have a 31-year-old daughter, and right now our major project that we're working towards is finding post-home options for her. And so the information that we've gotten from this Zoom has been priceless, and also today's Protected Tomorrow webinar was excellent. So if you have access to that, I would recommend listening to it if you're in the same boat as we are. And
go ahead. Protected Tomorrows is a spinoff from Marianne Ellert's organization, and she was here speaking to us several months ago about financial planning. So yeah, her whole parent university is a whole series of monthly webinars on all kinds of topics. So anyway, carry on, Mary.
Yeah, then our surprise visitor today was all three of us tested positive for COVID.
The trifecta.
Well, I hope you guys land up okay. That is no fun.
No,
Yeah,
no, we're doing fine.
we're doing pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
alrighty, but we're running behind on dinner, and you don't need to watch us eat dinner. So we're gonna stop our video for while we have a bite to eat. But we're here. So,
All right. Julie? Julie, can you hear us? Will you introduce yourself? Maybe not. Janice or Jim? Any of the J's that are
I'm
left?
here.
Okay.
Jan's here. I have a daughter at Water's Edge, and I'm a parent, obviously.
Thanks,
And
Jan.
does your daughter also go to ETC?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. And Jim? I guess the show is yours, Lori. We're going to talk tonight about accreditation issues. Is that it?
That is correct. We're going to talk about the many things that many hoops that not-for-profits have to jump through in order to serve the population. And Raj is gonna kick off tonight. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see some of our materials. All right, so you should be able to see the screen. And Raj, you can start.
Sure. Okay. AID has been accredited through an international CARF organization since 1978. Now, CARF is one of the big players, especially, actually it's throughout the United States. They also are in Canada, and some, I can't remember, the couple of European countries, and they have also moved to the Southeast Asia, as well as I'm a CARF surveyor, administrative surveyor since 2002, I think. So I just got an invitation a while back. Would you like to go to somewhere in Middle East? And I said, I can't go in person, but if you virtual, I'll go there. So they have expanded quite a bit. I think CARF started in 1966, and in 1978, AID went through the process. We got a 1-year accreditation at that time. And since then, AID has continuously got a 3-year accreditation over the last, 40, 50 years. I'll talk a little bit more about it. I'll talk a little bit more on it on the second slide. But AID also has accreditation through the American Association of Suicidology. And I think this started somewhere in late 90s.
It was about 20 years ago. And they do a 5-year cycle. So after our initial first year approval by them, we then have been awarded 5-year renewals. Every year they send a paper survey to find out about the organization. They during their accreditation visits every 5 years, do an on-site visit, except for this past time because it was during COVID. So they did virtual visits. They interview staff and board members and clients, and then ensure that we are following all the protocols of the American Association of Suicidology. And part of what we have with that with them is for our crisis line. So it's the proper training and answering potential suicide risk calls on our crisis line. And we have to go to at least 2 conferences that the American Association of Suicidology holds over our 5-year period, keep up our training, inform them of any changes, additions, or deletions of programming in our organization. And they follow, the same types of things that Raj is going to talk about in the CARF information in a few minutes. But they are focused on the proper response to people who are contemplating or calling because they feel as if they would wish to commit suicide.
In addition, actually, AID also has licensure through the Illinois Department of Human Services, and we have a license for the Division of IDDD, Division of Mental Health, Division of Rehab Services. This is mainly for employment, and also for Division of Family and Community Services for the Title 20 services, which we utilize in our janitorial program. We also have licensure from the Illinois Department of Health. He has one intermediate care facility, ICF, which is Stackhouse. And I think this accreditation licensure has been there more than 32 years that I remember. We also have licensures through the Department of Healthcare and Family Services. This is the HFS, and this is the arm that is responsible for funding the various departments of human services, services that are fee for service. We also have our staff training program, as well as the professional staff licensed through the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. In addition to this, AID also has certification for the various managed care organizations. So somewhere in 2013, the Medicaid and later on the Medicare services got shifted by the state of Illinois to the various health insurance companies that wanted to join in. So we have this certification through Blue Cross Blue Shield, Meridian, Humana, Aetna, Molina, which are the big players in our area. There are a couple of other ones in the Chicago area that we don't have a contractual relationship with. So going back to CARF, CARF, like I said, has been there since 1966. And I'm not going to read each and every word, but when we look at the mission of CARF is to promote the quality, the value, and the optimal outcomes of services through a consultative accreditation process and continuous quality improvement that centers towards enhancing the lives of the people served. All the surveyors are actually providers in the community or have been providers in the past. So it's a very intensive process to go through the accreditation. Most organizations, mid-size or large, have to go through a 3-year accreditation. Smaller organizations, especially when they first start up with the accreditation process, it's a 2-year. There are certain programs of AID that are mandated to have accreditation. The other ones, we also go through the process to improve the quality and also to adopt best practices. The vision of CARF is through responsiveness to a dynamic and diverse environment. CARF serves as a catalyst for improving the quality of life of persons served. There are thousands of standards that we have to meet. I think last time in January of 21, we went through the last survey, which was a virtual one, and that was the first time that we went through virtual. Before that, every 3 years, we have gone through in-person surveys. I think we had to meet 1,100 and some standards, and each standard has different value to obtain the 3-year accreditation. Organizations that don't meet the standards, they get no accreditation. And especially the organizations that get no accreditation are the ones that in which the health and safety of the individual served is in jeopardy. Then CARF can give a 1-year accreditation if there are substantial deficiencies that the organization finds. And then if the organization is doing well and has very few recommendations or none, and has a lot of strengths in a variety of areas, then the organization receives a 3-year. The values of CARF are all people have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. All people should have access to the needed services that achieve optimal outcomes, and all people should be empowered to exercise informed choices. So just like we are moving the home and community-based services towards client choice, CARF has been doing this for a very long time. The other thing that they focus a lot on is continuous quality improvement. No organization is perfect, but the input that we receive from the surveyors who have done surveys elsewhere has been established in the field, because even to become a surveyor, you have to go through approval first, and then training, and also do an internship before you can become a full-fledged surveyors. So they have seen other organizations that they can bring to the organization that is being surveyed with best practices that are utilized elsewhere. Diversity and cultural competence in all CARF activities and associations. And the key thing is enhancing the involvement of persons in all CARF activities. So when CARF comes into an organization, there are a couple of more. Persons served being active participants in the development and application of standards, and I'll come to that in a second, and enhancing the meaning, value, and relevance of accreditation to persons served. So how do they develop the standards? They get input from persons served, family members, guardians, surveyors who have worked in the field, through people who may not be surveyors but are key stakeholders. And when CARF comes into an organization to survey, the first step actually is we have to send to CARF, and usually that is about 60 days before, all the programs that the organization needs to be to go through the survey process. So like in this particular slide, we have a 3-year accreditation for all these programs. Now, the only mandated ones are in the mental health areas and in the community employment. But we feel that the residential programs of AID, even on the IDDD side, as well as the supportive programs like community integration, these are CARF terminologies, but they basically refer to the community day services that we have, the supported living program that we have, we refer to as intermittent SILA, and the SILAs, which are community housing program, also benefits through the accreditation process. So organizations decide which program need to go through, and then when CARF sends the surveyors, they send the expertise in variety of areas. So usually, when we were smaller, we used to get years, but today, actually, last time when we went through, they sent 6 or 7 surveyors because we are sending a variety of different programs. So there was one surveyor who was specific to the mental health child and adolescent program, even though that is a smaller program for us. Another surveyor was dedicated to employment support, job development. But because a SILA program is larger, they devoted 2 surveyors for that. Our mental health, outpatient and psychiatry and psychosocial rehab programs are larger. So they again sent 2 surveyors for the adult side of the mental health programs. So our last accreditation is valid until June 30th, 2024. But the process of the next accreditation will start somewhere around December of 2023.
And Raj, they also
I'm sorry.
they also send an accreditor, a surveyor to look at all of our administrative.
Yes. There's one, definitely one surveyor who's dedicated to the administrative side. And that is the beauty of CARF. A lot of other accreditation bodies, they are more devoted towards just the programmatic side. But CARF takes a holistic approach, because if the financial systems are not there, if the human resource system, or lately the information technology system, then services could be drastically impacted. So they sent one surveyor definitely from the administrative side, and that's actually, I do the administrative part for other organizations. The next page talks about, and they send these stars. I mean, even though we have a 3-year accreditation, every year we'll get another star for the 2nd year. So the next few pages, it's a very detailed book, and I think I'm just going to mention how many pages is it. It's about 400 pages, and we go through the manual that is referred to as the Community and Employment Services Manual, Employment and Community Service Manual, and that's for the IDDD side of the agency. On the behavioral health, we go through their behavioral health manual. Some organizations in the hospital systems and in long-term medical care, they go through the medical manual. So there are a variety of different manuals that are utilized. Again, is basically to enhance the lives served. I'm not going to go through the detail of new organizations, but I'm going to go through the areas of administrative side, which they refer to as Aspire to Excellence, that they look at. So the first section that they look at is the leadership. And there are a variety of things that they look at, whether the organization has leadership that is looking for the future, is there succession planning, are the financial overall oversight for governance. Then there is another section of governance. This is primarily towards the board, and it has about, I think, 20 standards. The third area is strategic planning process. Does the organization utilize the strategic planning process? Some organizations do it on a smaller scale. If they are smaller, some in a larger scale. The one beauty of CARF that has changed over the years, and we have given input on that, was that at one time, and I remember it clearly in early 2000, CARF standards were a little bit prescriptive. Do you have a performance evaluation system which is this way? Now they have moved away from that. They still look at performance evaluation, but they do not dictate how the forms need to be, because different organizations meet standards in different ways. A key component of the survey is input from persons served and other stakeholders. So each time they come, they definitely talk with the board chair and at least one or two other board members. They'll definitely talk with clients, at least 2 or 3 or even 5, up to 5 from each program that is being surveyed. So we ask the individuals that are served as to who would be interested to be interviewed or talked with the surveyor. And again, this is from point of view of getting input. CARF surveyors also talk with guardians and family members. Then, of course, they talk with leadership, staff, middle management, and ultimately, they definitely want to get input from the direct service employees. The next section is legal requirements, whether the organization is meeting everything that is required from a legal point. Financial planning and management. There's a big component of risk management. And this is from the point of, at AID, what we do is we have a corporate compliance committee, and corporate compliance looks at the variety of different risks and what would be the mediations or action plans to meet it. If there is an area that we are dependent on resources, so what resources could be obtained to meet that or minimize that risk. Workforce development and management. This is primarily the human resource area, along with staff training. Technology has become really a big thing these days, also because during the pandemic, a lot of services were being offered virtual. So technology has two components. One is, of course, the IT part, is the servers that we have secure, is there cyber security insurance. And the second part of that would be, are the services that are being provided virtually are effective? What could be done to improve it? Another component of that is rights of persons served. Now, AID has a right statement, which is derived from not only the accreditation body CARF, but also from the funders, the primary funders, the state and the federal government, and also from input from the committee that runs the Human Rights Committee. Accessibility. This is another big area in which accessibility is not only limited to the facility, is the place accessible to the individual, but also in terms of employment, environment, transportation, communication. So a variety of different areas that is looked at. And the final two administrators are performance measurement and management and performance improvement. And here comes the programmatic outcomes in aggregate. It also includes the satisfaction of individuals served and stakeholders. AID also implements a staff satisfaction survey. So we try to get input from a variety of resources. We also actually try to get input of satisfaction from the businesses that employ the individuals that we serve. Also from our funders, and input that is received. We try to improve on the areas that are suggested for improvement. Then each program that is going through the survey, that is looked at by the programmatic surveyors. And the first section in each program talks about the individualized services and supports. Here, you may be familiar with individual plan. Now the words have changed into, Laurie, help me out. Internally, the ISCs do the
person-centered planning.
Yes, person-centered planning. CARF refers to as individual-centered service planning. And then the agency in Illinois has moved towards how do we meet and what do we put in place to meet the person-centered planning. Medication monitoring and management, these are applicable, especially in programs where we have the medications that are monitored or administered. For us, it is the SILA, the community housing program, which includes SILA on the behavioral health side, the supervised living. And in supported programs, it is more of monitoring that the individual has access to and is taking the medications on a regular basis. Employment service principle standards, community principle standards, these are again from a programmatic standpoint for each of the programs that is going through survey. Now, section 3 is specific for employment, and we go through the community employment services, G, which is CES, and our day programs. In some years, we have gone through F, which is the Organizational Employment Service. I think those are the two big ones. Community services, for AID, we go through G, which is the community integration, which is applied to our community day program, previously referred to as DT program. H, which is our SILAs and intermittent SILA. The I for us is also called intermittent SILA, which is the supported living. J is the service coordination for us internally is referred to as intake or admissions. Then let's think. P, personal support services. Some of these standards could be applied in the same program. And let me mention, CARF also is just like any non-for-profit. The more programs you send through, the cost of the survey becomes more. So the organizations decide which particular accreditation they want, because some organizations utilize the day program for personal support service. Some organizations utilize community integration. So we have chosen the community integration, but I do know that at one time, I think in early 90s, we had the PSS also. The next section would be, I think that's it, right? And then we also have designations, like in our mental health program, there is a designation having the specific, I didn't put scan that. We have something for children program in the mental health specific. So that goes through the survey. Now, the mental health manual is separate, and that also the administrative side, which is the Aspire to Excellence, is the same, but programmatically, it would be different. Then CARF completes the report, sends it to the main, the surveyors complete the report, send it to CARF. Then CARF has a designated specialist who looks through the report, takes it through the committee, and then the accreditation decision is completed and sent back to the agency within 6 weeks to 8 weeks. And that report, which is about 25-30 pages, has what the accreditation is. So for us, it has been 3 years. Then it has lists all the different strengths of the organization. Last time when we had, it ranged about, I think, 3 pages or so. And then by section, it goes through, are there any recommendation that we do have to send a corrective action plan? Are there any consultation in which the organization may or may not utilize because it's specific by the surveyor, but it's not a recommendation that you need a correction. And then the agency has to submit every year a quality improvement plan to CARF. Now that's in short.
So it's a very complicated process that seeks to assure that we are meeting the standards required to deliver good service in the areas of service that we supposedly deliver, right? So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that. I think part of the reason Jim wanted us to talk about this is to ensure parents and guardians that maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, Jim, but to ensure that we actually know what we're doing and have to meet a whole lot of outside standards, right? In order to successfully be able to deliver service. And, accreditation is required for us to be able to bill those managed care organizations, bill insurance, and bill Medicaid.
Call from Amy.
Whoop, here we go. It allows us to bill in all of our programming that's done. And if you're not accredited by one, there's 3 accreditation agencies, I think, that basically exist for the type of services that we do. If you don't meet that, you don't get to work in the fields that we are in, right? We don't get to provide those services.
It's basically like my nephew who's a pilot with Southwest, and every couple of years he has to do a check ride to make sure that he's pushing the right buttons when he's landing the 737, which is exactly what we want. Maybe you and Raj and Stephanie could summarize really briefly sort of the highlights of the CARF survey that we went through a year and a half ago.
I actually have the survey report with me, and I'm looking at the first few pages. They talk about CARF, and then they go into who were the surveyors, and then they finally come, what is the accreditation, which for us was a 3-year and has been like that since 79.
And that's the highest level of accreditation that you can get. What was there a kind of executive summary that came with the report that you could just touch on a couple of the highlights of things we're doing really well?
Okay, the strengths part, and I'm just going to read a few. It is evident that AID has a strong commitment to excellence. The CEO and the leadership team has cultured a quality infrastructure through his personal policies and practices. Because when CARF comes, besides speaking with all the stakeholders and clients and staff, they also go through all the client, not all, the sample records, all the policy and procedures that meet their standards. The second one list is AID is applauded for his advocacy efforts to promote the elimination of discrimination and stigma. The organizational believes in having a seat at the table on representative at Illinois State Advisory Committees in the Rate Methodology Committee. Another one would be the organizational acumen in data to move the organization forward while responding to the needs of the stakeholders is there. The staff and management of AID have a good understanding of CARF standards and are committed to conforming on the standards to the greatest benefit for the individuals that we serve. I'm going to jump a few and come to another one. The homes in the residential program are practical, safe, and located in nice neighborhoods. Now, I've been a surveyor for almost 15, 16 years, and I've done little less than 100. And the one area that I feel really proud of AID is when you compare the houses in our SILA program with some other houses of some other organizations that I've seen throughout US and even in Canada, they stand out. So AID staff members are clearly dedicated to the facilitation of positive outcomes for individuals that we serve. The clients consistently express their feelings of being supported in activities enjoyed. AID has experienced dedicated and flexible staff members who continue to provide quality supports despite the national workforce shortage. And this again, from a I feel sad to say that we have so many openings. Like right now, there are about 40 openings in our SILA program. But again, when you take the vacancy rate, we have ranged pre-COVID somewhere between 4 to 8%. But right now, it's closer to 15%. But when we compare it nationally, which are having vacancy rates of 30 to 50%, again, I don't want to minimize that. It's terrible right now. We want to improve it further. But with the national shortage, CARF did also applaud what we were doing. The last area I'll mention on the behavioral health side, AID provides an impressive crisis intervention continuum from the crisis line of Fox Valley, from answering urgent and emergency calls and wellness checks to the 24 hours community support team. These vital crisis services will continue to offer the community solutions and resolutions for those in distress and suicidal ideations. So that's I mean, they go through 2 pages of those trends, and then they go through each and every section from the point of view of recommendation and consultation. Like, for example, in the leadership areas where they looked about the structure, responsibility, person-centered philosophy, organizational guidance, leadership accessibility, cultural competency, diversity, and organizational fundraising. Last time, they did not have any recommendation. So they
So
ended.
were there, Stephanie, what were you most proud of from the most recent CARF report? I know you were just taken over from Wanda about that time, but sort of what were your impressions of our highlights?
Well, I will echo what Raj read on the strengths about the staff. You know, we had one of our surveyors joking that she wished she could take them back with her to her organization. And so they were very impressed with the dedication that our staff show. They also were impressed with what we were able to do during the pandemic crisis. We got a lot of good feedback about you know, the activities that we continued to run, or we began to run from homes. You know, we got a lot of good feedback about all of the virtual services that we provided. And, you know, for me and for us, you know, kind of slogging through that, and they were coming virtually because we just had another spike. You know, it was very encouraging to hear that we were getting some of it right.
Yeah, I think a lot of it right. Does CARF do a comparative ranking? In other words, do they say, hey, AID is in the top 5%, the top 25%? Is there any kind of, you know, a norm against which we are compared with peer organizations?
No, they don't compare organizations. And I would think one of the reasons would be they have agencies which are just one CILA. Then they have agencies which they send 10 surveyors. So the range is too big.
Yeah.
So I think the comparison would be how many organizations receive a 3-year, 1 year, and no accreditation.
Well, and I think the comparison is against the standard, right? So, you know, that's what you're holding yourself to, is all those 1,112 standards. And we got what, 11 or 16 recommendations?
I think 11. No, not 16. Around 11.
Yeah, I thought it was 11. And that's like out of 1,100.
What did they range over? Sort of the recommendations, what were they covering? I know they were all fairly minor, weren't they?
Yeah, it was some of it was mainly towards paperwork part. I'm just going to look at I don't have it now.
Well, while Raj is looking that up, I guess the reason I asked about whether it's normed against peer organizations is that I think most parents, not only at AID, but elsewhere, you know, there are times when we see the ways that things could be way better. And, you know, you're tempted to think, oh, the grass is greener someplace else, so I'm just going to jump ship and go find the, you know, perfect program out there and get my kid enrolled in it. And I will confess there are times when I struggle with that. And it's a really important reminder to me to, you know, read through the CARF survey, which I did after we got it, you know, and to hear these kinds of reports that you guys are doing, because it really is reassuring that there is no better agency out there that is going to serve most of our kids. And for me, that's really reassuring that then, you know, as parents, our job is to jump in and do what we can to, you know, to improve things within our ability range at the organization that we're committed to. So I find this discussion reassuring. So, yeah.
So
Go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead, Raj.
No, no, I was just looking through the whole book. But leadership, no recommendation. Strategic planning, no recommendation. Input from persons served and other, none. Legal, no recommendation. Financial, none. Risk management, none. In health and safety, although some of the evacuation routes are clear, many of the evacuation maps are difficult to understand. So we did have some those evacuation routes that were not typed up, they were penciled. So that was one of the recommendations that we should improve that for better understanding. And
And
another
we
one,
have, right?
I'm sorry.
And we did.
Yes, and we did. And then I think there is a recommendation which stemmed from one of the vehicles did not have a fire extinguisher. So
Again, those are all really said that there's no major ding against the organization to say, whoa, you guys better fix this up or else. There was nothing like that.
So the other thing I wanted Stephanie to have a couple minutes to talk about was the licensure processes from the state Division of Developmental Disability, as well as the Bureau of Accreditation, Licensure and Certification, and some of those other mouthfuls of ABCs. If you would take a couple minutes, Stephanie.
Sure. So we on the DD side, we have typically 2 annual surveys in our community day services, and then for residential, our licensure survey comes every other year. It's a 2-year licensure now. So the body that comes out and does the licensure, you know, as Lori was saying, is the Bureau of Accreditation, or a Bureau, of Accreditation, Licensure, and Certification. You'll hear staff refer to it as BALC, BALC. And so that is that's our survey for compliance. So that is, are we meeting the regulations that are in place? So they will come out and, like I said, annually look at our day programs, and then every other year look at our residential programs. And that's everything from, are we in compliance with the paperwork side of things? Does everyone have an annual plan? Do people that need behavior supports, do they have them? Are we following through, you know, medication wise and medically, where if we have a, you know, if we have a prescription, is it on our MAR? If we have a doctor's order, did we follow up? Did we go back to the doctor for follow-ups? You know, when they asked us to come back in 6 months, all of that stuff. So they're going to look at, did we make that happen? But then they're also looking at our actual facilities, and do those meet the standards? So are they clean? Are they safe? Do we have exit routes posted? Have our fire extinguishers been checked and recharged as needed? And you know, everything right down to the water temperatures, which in some of our older buildings gets a little tricky. Thompson Center is a crapshoot every time. And they're in there checking those water temp, like we all check water temperatures monthly. I think they're doing it more than that at Thompson, and they're still, it's just an old building. So they come and they look at the whole picture, and they are making sure that we, like I said, are meeting the standards of the regs. So that's bulk, and that's our license. Now we also get a visit from the Bureau of Quality Management, And they come from DDD to take a look at how, like, not just are we meeting the the standards, but what kind of quality services are we providing. And so what they're doing is reading plans and talking to people and following up, does this plan match up with what the person is saying they want to do with their life? So they do interviews with people that we serve. They do interviews with guardians. They do interviews with staff. And then, they're taking a much closer look. Like they're not checking boxes for, did you do it on time? They're taking a look at, did you write something quality in there? Do your monthlies reflect an update, or so everybody has to have a monthly note. Do they reflect what's going on with this person? And so, and BQM, they're not mandated to come every year. They can kind of come when they want. But they have, for most of my experience, been on a 1-year schedule where they pretty much come annually.
And they don't give you warning ahead of time.
No.
Either one of those entities, they walk in your front door and say, we're from bulk and we're here for so you can't, fix up anything that might be a deficit, right? Because they're coming, because they're surprise visits and they come in the door. So the other thing I want to mention is that we virtually have audits and visits, probably 300 days of the year out of 365 days in a year, because we get audits and visits we have to have fire marshal inspections of all of our properties every year, redone and set up. We have to have the Office of Contract Administration, or OCA. We are just wrapping up a audit by them that we've been working on for 3 months, 4 months, because their recommendations, that's the people at Department of Human Services who just look at the administrative contractual stuff, right? And are we doing, are we getting rid of, are we canceling old checks that haven't been cashed? Are we, running our financials in certain ways? Every one of our funders comes out and does an on-site audit, or most of them. Some of the smaller places that give maybe a one-time, once a year donation or something may not, but all of our 708 mental health boards, our larger foundations. I recently did our audit for neighborhood stabilization program funding that came through the Illinois Housing Development Authority for Mark and Fescue. So it's just for 2 houses, and it's different than the bulk and the BQM stuff that they're looking at, right? Because they're looking at the property management and compliance and are we housing the people that we're supposed to house that are low income, fit all the eligibility requirements, et cetera, right? And we have that for all of our different housing options. We just got our update from our community housing development organization for the city of Aurora, or CHODO, CHDO. And we just got our feedback back from our application to renew our CHODO verification, and we have to do that because we have CHODO funds in a couple of DD houses that help fix things or update things, and until that money is forgiven, we have to remain a CHODO. So it was like this much paperwork, and we're answering all those questions. So we have monthly, quarterly, bi-yearly and yearly reports that we do for every funding source that we have a cajillion, grant reports, a lot of which Christy does and finance does, right? Along with staff on outcomes. All the MCOs have their different requirements for training and eligibility in order to be able to build them. So we quite literally have some kind of audit, report, inspection happening just about every day, including some weekends. So, Andy, our director of maintenance, was just setting up, we have HUD homes, right? So HUD comes and inspects those both on a programmatic, excuse me, and a site visit. So where they come and look at all the systems and all the units to ensure that they're kept up to standards of habitability and safety for all the people we serve. So I don't even think I can name off every single type of check and balance that we have in order to.
It sounds like that's all you do.
Yeah. In addition, actually, we do internal audits. The quality improvement team, the safety committee, they're also making sure that the surveys are done so that we can, for best practice.
So Stephanie, bulk gives us our license to operate from the state. What
Correct.
does BQM do then? If they find deficiencies, does that affect our licensure, or are there plans of corrective action that are required, or what?
Yeah, there are absolutely corrective action plans that that they will put into place if there is an issue, and generally they will they'll give you a couple of weeks to respond with what you're going to do, and then they'll give you about 90 days to actually put that into practice.
And if you, if you didn't comply with that and you continue to be in non-compliance, they could endanger your ability to continue to be licensed and or receive your funding. They can get to the point where they can, you can go on stop payment list, right? Where you don't get paid from the state until you have everything, into compliance. That can happen on the reporting side as well, right? With all your financial reporting and pieces. Some of the other things that they do, they come out and do a Rule 116 audit. That's the nursing side of the Division of Developmental Disabilities that comes out and looks through all, and works with the nurses and audits all of their documentation, looks at med compliance, looks at training compliance for that medication management pieces. What else? There's more on there's one more than that on the DD side, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, all the assessments like the health risk screening, nursing assessment, I think there are about 4 or 5 different assessments.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Well, I was just going to note that that they used to come with BQM, with the Bureau of Quality Management, and now they come independently of that. So it is a whole separate survey.
So I know every once in a while on, the Facebook group iPad Unite, there'll be a reference to the state report card that sort of is looking at how do agencies fare in terms of, bulk and BQM stuff. I know one time, I guess it was maybe a year or two ago, I looked at it and like AID fell just below sort of the cutoff for being in the top category. And I was like, what's going on here? And I think I actually talked with you, Lori, about it. And you were like, well, hey, if our water temperature was off by 2 degrees, we can get dinged, and that knocks us out of, sort of the perfection range. But what can you guys say sort of about that report card that's out there?
So that is something that the Division of Developmental Disabilities put into place actually whenever I was at the state, trying to give families something to look at, right? When you're trying to decide where you might want to consider receiving services for your loved one, right? And so that is available, I believe still, right, on the DHS website. And frankly, I haven't looked at it in a while to see where we're even at, because it's to me, it's such a very difficult quantification, right? Because of those very negligible things in terms of, like, it's very hard to judge quality by a report card, right? And what might be really great for one consumer might not be good for another consumer, right? So I think it's a difficult undertaking,
Measurement to make. Yeah, I think when I looked at it a couple of years ago, the data set was outdated as well. It was like a 3-year look back or something. And it's like, so that tells me what it was like 3 years ago. It doesn't tell me much about where things stand today, or whether the complaints or deficiencies were insignificant, like you're off by 2 degrees on your water temperature, or whether they are, staff are beating up clients, and that's something I should really be worried about,
Right.
So
Right.
anyway,
And from
I'm
that
gonna shut up and
standpoint-
see what other questions you parents have of Raj and Lori and Stephanie. Anybody out there in Zoom land that's kind of got a question? Julie, you got a question? Raj, you were going to say something?
No, I was about to say that in the past, I think it's improved quite a bit. In the past, some of these surveys were very paper oriented. So if we have, let's say, a monthly notes, but the staff left the agency before they signed, now we get dinged for something that really cannot be corrected. So I still remember one survey, one desk in one of the Scylla homes had scratches on it, and we got, I don't know, 3-4 points deducted just for that one reason. So it, I think, also depends on the surveyor as to which perspective they're utilizing for the standards. I still remember days when they used to call it DT program, CDS, used to get 100%. Everything is good. Now, internally, I knew from a corporate compliance standpoint, we are not 100.
Right.
We probably are 99. So some of it is dependent on the surveyor.
Can I ask a quick question? My son's home is not AID owned, or so is that, I mean, I know something was brought up about a fire extinguisher, and they got in there, but I mean, I've gone through the training with Balk and all. So is that included, or is it separate? Like, would that be in your rating?
Stephanie, if I may answer that, I know that even individuals in intermittent Scylla need to have the fire extinguisher in their home from long time back when I was in intermittent Scylla. Is that still there?
Yeah, and that's correct. And so the standards for an agency controlled home are different and more stringent than the standards for a client controlled home, which is what you're describing, where those men hold their own lease. And it's a place that, essentially they have chosen, as opposed to we have chosen for them. We did have an experience with a bulk surveyor very recently that was applying those very stringent standards to client-controlled homes. And so that is something that was discussed with Bulk. And, you know, that didn't end up being a part of our, you know, those extra things didn't end up being a part of our plan of correction. But we had a very enthusiastic surveyor.
So, you know, like the properties that we, that aren't like, that are like, the low income housing type that we don't control, that we don't own, right? But the ones that are like, affordable housing also have many inspections that they go through on their ownership side. So like, you know, like many of the apartment complexes, that people are in, both with public housing authorities or that have rental subsidies that are from the federal government, also have to go through like yearly inspections and have to meet all kinds of standards as well. You know, so there is some safety and security through that, you know, and we obviously work with residents that we support in non-AID owned properties to advocate with their landlord and with folks if there is something that is not as it should be, you know, in a home, but we aren't supposed to be held responsible for something we can't control, right? So I can't go in and put in a sprinkler system in you know, a property that we don't own, so we wouldn't be held to that standard. But you know, we would work very closely, and most of the places that we assist people in moving into have other oversight that ensures safety and security and upkeep and maintenance and et cetera for the properties that we're in. And we do repeat words here, but we do provide maintenance in a lot of places that are like parent owned and controlled. So our maintenance team is in there and you know, doing those upkeep and pieces a lot of times. So that gives us kind of in those homes added level of assurance that things are you know, in good shape.
Okay.
That's a good question. Anybody else? I know I saw some person or two signing off and people saying thanks, that it was good information. And thank you for going through all the heartache of and hard work of being accredited. So if there is nothing else, I guess we can sign off for the evening. Our last event of the year is in October. I think is that the 27th, Jim? Does that seem right?
I think so. It'll be the fourth
Thursday.
week. That is the 27th of October, and that's going to be planning, right? Primarily is
Right.
what do we want to do next year in terms of educational opportunities, et cetera.
And I want people to know, you know, after our after the picnic, there was some discussion, right, about the potential for fundraising and other support that family members might be interested in. So I've invited Angela Cudmore from our resource development department to come as well during the planning session to talk about what we might want to think about doing as a group to support the resource development team as well. So Angela will be here at that meeting.
And I'm guessing that most of you are receiving the new email chains that we set up through AID a couple of months ago. If you are not, then please contact either Lori or myself. You can find both of our email addresses on the Family Council tab on the website, and we'll get you into that email group. And I'm reminding you that we also have a private Facebook group now. So look up the AID Family Council Facebook group and send us a message, and we will let you in.
Yeah, please let other, if you know other parents that would be interested in that. I looked earlier this week. I think we just have 15 members of our the AID Facebook family group. So
Yeah, it's not very many.
It's not enough. We have a lot more family members and guardians and parents than that. So if you know of anyone, that would be both interested in attending family council meetings and or getting on that Facebook group, please encourage them or let us know, and I can send them an invitation if I know, as the administrators, we can also send out invitations if somebody doesn't ask to be included. So I was gonna look sometime through my Facebook group and see if I have any parents on my group and just invite them. But I don't think I've had very many people. So it is another great resource, but we just need to keep trying to build up this community, I think, because I don't know about you guys, but I think it's been good for the last couple of years. And I've enjoyed the conversations. And I thought this year, the addition of the in-person kind of support was really nice. I thought was very beneficial. And I thought it was great for staff as well. We talked about, so be thinking for next month about what else we want to add. We talked about adding more layers of staff, right, to be able to come and be able to have interaction as well. But we definitely want to be able to get more families there in order to partake of those opportunities as well.
We're doing. Well, if there's no more questions, as we're signing off, just let me say thank you again to Lori and to Raj and to Stephanie, not only for being here with us tonight, but for all of the good work that you do. And again, I hope you parents, whether your loved one is receiving, day services or residential services or both, that this conversation is really reassuring. Sometimes we see just the deficits, and, to look at how and be reminded that our kids are in good and safe hands, I think is a really important reminder to all of us. So thanks to all of you for being here, and Stephanie, Raj, and Lori for your fine leadership. So
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
good night.
Thank you.